Ah, how good does it feel to be back? Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the beginning of another Formula One season, and this one has something special to it, 2021 just seems to have that special charm with all the cars looking different, the influx of new drivers, and just that potential level of intrigue about can Red Bull finally dethrone Mercedes? All that is to be seen in the upcoming 22 races. But first, we start here in Bahrain. And today on the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits to Podium, we shall dissect the 5 things you should watch out for in this week's Bahrain Grand Prix. Firstly, my name is Soumil Arora and I'm joined by Kunal Shah right here with me. And Kunal, at this stage, you might know, he is ex-Force India marketing head. He is motorsport consultant at VS Sport Network, ex-racing driver, among other things. I love to say this line. I will not stop there. And Kunal, today we've got a whole host of topics to discuss. Firstly, what could happen in qualifying? What about the rookies? We can discuss about Sandstorms potentially coming in as well. And also, there's a chance to see two sporting legends getting their first shot at redemption, among other big stories.
Hi, Soumil. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's great to be, at the cusp of the first race of the season. I know the weekend has already started. The business end of things is, tomorrow and then day after. Lots of headline stories, to sort of look forward to. We've just seen FP1 and FP2 get concluded. And I still think that the true form factor will only be seen at the end of the qualifying hour. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. Yes, FP2 is as representative as it can get because of the conditions being as similar and so on. But lots of things to look forward to this weekend, Samuel.
Exactly, and I'll start with the most dramatic one out here first, because one of our colleagues at Pits to Podium, Nityan, the social media genius, now he noticed something that we all did in testing, right? Mercedes just not having the best of testing forms. And even in FP2 today, Kunal, not the best of outings for them. Hamilton third, Bottas fifth. And he said, well, Sandstorms are potentially going to be there for qualifying. Potentially, that is. If that is the case, we will have qualifying on Sunday morning if it does get interrupted. But he mentioned, is that really the weather playing its part? Or is that just all the sand that Mercedes is letting out by sandbagging all this time? Because it's really outrageous to see them not having a solid foolproof start to the year, which is what we've grown to with what we've grown to get used to.
I'm going to reserve all the sandstorm comments till the start of the qualifying hour because, qualifying is when we'll have all the correct fuel levels in place because, that's when you want to get all your settings to get the fastest lap in place. So, fuel levels will be at their lowest. But most importantly, something which is also unknown is the engine modes that they would be using. Yes, there are limits to the number of engine modes teams can use, but at the same time qualifying hour is when you will make sure you have everything working on your car to get that one quick lap, and you give that super quick car to the likes of a Lewis Hamilton and to the likes of Max Verstappen, both qualifying stalwarts. Okay, I'm pretty excited to see who actually comes out on top. And Bahrain has seen 4 different pole sitters in the last 4 years. So we had in reverse order, I think we had Hamilton, Leclerc, Vettel, and Bottas. And I would love to see a fifth new driver or a different driver take pole position tomorrow.
It should be so much fun to see, right? It's going to be such a fun battle right at the very top to see potentially what Valtteri Bottas could do, what Sergio Perez could do. And after looking at free practice, can Max Verstappen finally get that elusive pole position and just get one up over Lewis Hamilton in qualifying, which, quite frankly, has been quite a task to do. Let's see that. But Kunal, at the back of the grid as well, George Russell has been an absolute marvel in qualifying for the last 2 years. What do you reckon he could do tomorrow?
George Russell will just do things that George Russell has been famous for when he races for Williams, which is pull out that one qualifying master stroke when he really needs to do that. It seems like he could sort of target the Alfa Romeo cars, at least one of them, if not both of them. And just getting into Q2 is again what we will start celebrating when it comes to George Russell, Sommel. But I think a similar sentiment is what we may start feeling towards Mick Schumacher.
Exactly.
in Haas. Three rookies this season, something else to look forward to, how they handle the pressure of being their first Grand Prix weekend and the likes. And we've said this before, but for Mick Schumacher, it would be perfect to emulate the performances and the sentiment that we feel for George Russell, which is pull out that qualifying master stroke and see if he can sort of get one, if not both Williams in sort of be ahead of them. And at least in FP2 he managed to do that to Nicolas Latifi. So great start for at least one of the rookies as well.
Exactly. And it's been so long. I think 2012 since we've last seen that MSC initial on the timing tower. Now, I know we're putting a lot of pressure on Mick Schumacher, and it's been a story that's been well discussed and probably run to the ground at this stage. But seriously, what a heartwarming moment, right? For that generation of fans. Now, unfortunately, I was only able to watch the comeback of Michael by the time I really got into the sport. But seriously, I can imagine for you, Kunal, being such a big Michael Schumacher fan, having met him and seeing his story all the way through, just to see those three letters back on the F1 timing sheet, something special, no?
Very special, very nostalgic. I think it's great for the Schumacher family. Like Mick said, he's got an emotional bond with it, much like millions of Formula One fans have a bond. And I'll also put it this way: I think it's a great marketing step, by Formula One to do that, because SCH doesn't mean anything, but MSC means everything to a lot of Formula One fans.
Fair point, that one. And also something interesting with Haas as well. Sundaram has dug up an excellent style, which is the last time two rookies made their F1 debut at the same time together for one team was 2016. And for who it was? That was Manor, Rio Haryanto, and Pascal Wehrlein. And from what I can remember, Kunal, one of them actually ended up getting points in that season. That was Pascal Wehrlein. And frankly, if that's going to be, I mean, I know I'm drawing absolutely rubbish parallels, but if that's ever going to happen, right, Haas seemingly have no chance of scoring points this season unless something huge happens. Who knows? Maybe we could see Mick Schumacher or maybe Nikita Mazepin get those points. That could be critical for them.
Yeah, I mean, I filed my pre-season column today on the bold predictions for 2021. I must admit I overlooked Nikita Mazepin, maybe for very obvious reasons,
Hmm.
but I have written down Mick Schumacher to score no points in 2021. And that's the thing about bold predictions. You sort of don't want them to come true, but like I said, in the column as well, that for Mick Schumacher, it's not the points that will matter so much. Yes, scoring a point in Haas will definitely turn heads, right? But what will definitely matter is, when he's able to convert those half chances into full chances and
Hmm.
showcase his talent. And, again, a George Russell analogy. Robert Kubica scored a point, but that really didn't impress us as much as Russell's repeated qualifying performances. So that's something that I'd look forward to. And then of course we've got Yuki Tsunoda. There's so much been spoken about his rapid rise through the ranks of motorsport. There's also a lot been spoken about his DRS tricks when it came to using the wing early in preseason testing. So he's somebody that we'll all be looking out for. But Soumil, 3 out of the last 4 races have been in Bahrain, right?
Yes.
The preseason test was in Bahrain, and we said this a
Yes.
few episodes ago. Just the quality of data that we will get to compare between the race last year, between testing this year, and then the race this weekend
Hmm.
will give us a lot of insights into progress that teams have made, particularly the impact of the new aerodynamic rules, the sort of lap time that's been lost. We'll also be able to make correlations to just how much fuel could have teams carried in testing, and hence make more sense of their testing lap times as well. And I know, guys, this is where Formula One gets confusing, but this is also where it gets a lot of fun for a lot of us.
Exactly. That's the best part, right? Knowing the variables and just not having any control over them. Watching them unfold is what makes it so much fun. Because if we all knew what was going to happen right before every race, would we even tune in? Which probably explains why numbers briefly declined when Hamilton was dominating so much. But hey, that's a different story for some other day. But what's intriguing, Kunal, now that you mentioned this, is that Pirelli apparently came up and said that they don't expect lap times to be very different in a race trim, even though the 2021 regulations theoretically should slow the cars down slightly. Now, that's just engineering marvels, right? The Formula One race engineers, you give them nothing and they will just come up with something absolutely insane. That's the quality of the brains that we have right there in the operations. But the quality of the brains can also be reflected in the strategy. Now, this is somewhere that Red Bull have been lacking in. They've only got one queen, and uh, dare I say this in a very chess analogy of sorts, they've got a half pawn of sorts. They haven't quite been able to maneuver any strategic advantage. Now, the real big question that we should be able to answer this weekend, at least get a glimpse of it, is that have they got a second queen? Have they got a rook? Have they got a bishop? Have they got a pawn? What is Sergio Perez like to that Red Bull operation? Because we saw at Yas Marina, when there are two Red Bulls going up against two Mercedes, it can really change the dynamic big time.
It is the single most important reason why they've decided to give Sergio Perez a chance.
Hmm.
And, for all the chess reasons that you said, to me, Formula One is simpler to understand than chess. Although I must say, I love the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, much
It's
like
amazing.
it's amazing. I think I liked that show more than I liked Drive to Survive. Not that I've finished or maybe even started Drive to Survive, but anyway, that's for another day. But yeah, I think come race day, it's going to be crucial to see if Red Bull and Mercedes are locked in battle, to see which team is able to use which driver to sort of pull out a competitive advantage using race for race strategy on track. That's going to be crucial. Red Bull haven't won a season opener race since 2011, and
Yes.
again, thanks to Sundaram for fantastic stats. And you guys should go follow his handle on Instagram. It's beautifully curated. It's called @MP Formula One, right? But back to Red Bull. It's going to be 10 years since they won their season opening, since they won a season opening race, right? Of course, we don't know if they'll win, just because Max Verstappen has stopped both the free practice sessions. It actually means nothing. But at least we know that if they do that on Sunday, it's after 10 years that they've managed to do that. And a lot will ride on what Checo Perez is able to bring to their race strategy as well.
Exactly. And also the Honda Power Unit. They've recently, I beg your pardon, they've reduced the size of the engine. They've kind of made it smaller and deliver greater degree of output. Now, how they have done that, I tried to read through the articles, but my mind is just not so technically inclined. It is just mind-boggling stuff how they've done that. And it is evident they do seem to be faster. But the bottom line, Kunal, is Bahrain a circuit that that suits rather, the Red Bull more than the Mercedes because it's full of quick high speed corners here and there, long straights. And indeed, Mercedes still are the ones to hold the advantage on the engine side of things. But I think it should be closer than last year. Knowing Bahrain, knowing the circuit that it is, it should be a close fight in the end. Should.
It should. I think it should be a close fight. It's the typical setup for Bahrain is for low and medium speed corners, because the high speed corners are sort of taken flat out. As we know by now, and given that 3 out of the last 4 races have been in Bahrain, there are 2 major overtaking spots. The braking into turn 1 or the braking into turn 4 as well. And cars are optimized for more mechanical grip, so that sort of gives them traction out of the slower corners. So lots of things working in favor of giving us an entertaining race. Also, very high degradation of tires. The wind comes into play, as we've seen even in preseason testing. The sand might come into play, whether it's from the Mercedes cars or from nature in general. So I expect a lot of pit. I expect it to be multiple stopping races. Come Sunday. Even though Pirelli are bringing the same compound, C2, C3, and C4 this weekend as well. So a lot of known factors and a lot of unknown factors as well that should sort of spice up the race this Sunday.
Exactly. Should be very interesting. Also, form-wise, Kunal, we've seen quite a fair bit in testing. There just seems to be a good aura surrounding many teams. Just doesn't quite seem to be a good aura surrounding the others. Form basis, who would you select? I mean, not just for a victory, right? That's not the only thing what they're fighting for in Formula One. There is so much else to be fighting for. There's the midfield battle, there's the lower midfield battle as well. If you had to pick out basically one key person to watch out for in each of these classes that we have in Formula One, who would it be for you?
I think I look out for Max Verstappen in the top of the field class, as we call it, or the Formula One class, as we call it. In the midfield or the Formula 1.5 class, I would I think I would watch out for what McLaren can do, and more specifically Lando Norris. You know,
Hmm.
it's his third season with the team, so there is definitely a lot of continuity that he sort of brings. Let's remember the new drivers. You know, whether they've sort of made going to make the debut this season, or if they have switched teams, and lots of drivers have switched
Oh,
teams,
yeah.
or if they're a returning driver in the case of, say, Fernando Alonso, they might just need some more time before they are able to sort of optimize the performance of their car on a Grand Prix weekend, because typically you sort of dial yourself in to go faster as the weekend progresses,
Hmm.
right? So I think Lando Norris definitely, and coincidentally he's done fairly well in the free practice sessions as well. And in the lower midfield or the back of the grid teams, it's tough to not choose George Russell, Sommel.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the run of form that he's been on recently. And plus, we've got just a little bit of a soft side for that lovely Williams livery, right? And the Murray Walker tribute. Oh, heartwarming. If you haven't watched it yet, check the onboards once the episode is done. That is, don't leave us through midway and have a look at what they've done for Murray Walker. Such an excellent thing to see. But it should be great fun to see what Russell can make out of that car, and also to see what the likes of Alfa Romeo, maybe even Alfa Tauri could do with that. Should be a lot of fun. But finally, Kunal, ending on a lighter note, I think another thing to watch out for is going to be Crofty perhaps having a less of a hard time, because this year, finally, the liveries are different. I don't think he's going to have major confusions now, apart from a few helmets here and there.
Yes, Lando Norris has got 23 helmet designs ready for
Oh.
Formula 1 in 2021, and I think that's a marketing disaster for the sport in every way, a visual disaster for the Formula 1 broadcast guys. Also a lot of wastage of money, I would say, but again, personal choices that there are. And all in all, it's just great that Formula One is back. We are able to start when we had sort of scheduled that we wanted to start, which is important. uh, my most interesting time is going to be the start and the opening lap of the race on Sunday, because Bahrain start the start line to the turn one is about 450, 470 odd meters, which is relatively short.
Yep.
And then we've got the right and the left hander leading into turn four, and typically we see lots of wheel banging, lots of cheeky overtakes, sometimes a scary accident as well.
Mm.
And I'm eager to see how drivers sort of end up tackling that and sort of going through lap one, and who makes up most positions, who ends up losing most positions, and so on. It's going to be a fun Grand Prix weekend, Samuel.
Absolutely, Kunal. Likewise, to be honest. But just the one last point that I have to discuss before we end is, unfortunately, in the last few years, many Formula One races have been just that, lap one competitions. And yes, you could end up saying that efficiency is boring. Teams have mapped things up to such a degree that they know exactly how things are going to play out. And eventually, that does take away a little bit of the charm away from it. And I just want to know your expectations, Kunal. The new regulations have come in, obviously, with the intent of trying to reduce the amount of downforce on the car, just to make it marginally better to make overtakes. Do you expect this one to be a lap one shootout and then just dull strategy, or how do you expect this one to go? I mean, I'm not saying that strategy is dull, but it just becomes very predictable in certain cases.
True. Yeah, yeah. What you mean is, we know if Hamilton pits on lap 20, then Bottas will come in on 22, and then everything is just, clockwork for the teams, which is not
Exactly.
necessarily fun for all of us. Personally, I'm a little buoyed by the changes in that we've seen on the cars. Not so much so because they've slowed the cars down, but so much so because different teams are finding different ways to sort of deal with, the loss of aerodynamics. Like, for example, we know about McLaren's radical diffuser, or
Yeah.
that they've brought in place. So I think that the form factor will will change through the weekend. We will see competition on track, especially because it's the first race of the season. And Bahrain doesn't always give dull races, and I sort of have a soft corner for Bahrain as well. It's one of the only Formula One tracks I've raced on as well. But
See?
all,
That's the interesting part of having you on the show. Just hearing that line, right? Having a co-host who said that I've actually raced on the Bahrain International Circuit, mind-blowing stuff for me personally.
I can say that just once in the year or twice if there are two races in Bahrain. So very short, very small number of tracks that I've driven on. Bahrain ends up being one of them. But I think it's going to be a fun, exciting race under the lights, and we don't know who's going to be doing what. We don't know if Aston Martin is going to be able to pull out something out of the bag because they weren't as quick, in free practice. We don't know if Ferrari are going to have an error-free weekend. And I think at some point next week, we'll all be digging into data to see if Ferrari have also sort of crawled back or clawed back some of their straight line speed deficit. So lots to look forward to for the first weekend before we are sort of forced into a 3 week long break.
Exactly. Should be great, great fun to see how things play out. And it's been just enough teasing to give us a brief idea of what to expect, but we still don't know. And that's what live sports should always be about. And folks, speaking of live, we've got something interesting for you. The Inside Line F1 podcast and Pitch to Podium go live immediately after the Bahrain Grand Prix ends. And we're going to try to do that for every single race on the Formula One season. I think around half an hour after the race is done, we'll go live for our post-race debrief show on YouTube and on our Facebook channel as well. So make sure that you join us right there. It's going to be a fun discussion. We're going to have a lot of interactions, lots of engagements. You can make your voice feel heard, and we can have a discussion on Formula One and the race that happened. Should be good fun.
It will. It's going to be just great to go back to dissecting the race immediately after on the Sunday with you, Soumil, and I look forward to doing that right away.
So, folks, have a good race weekend. Enjoy the race, and hopefully, we get a really good one in Bahrain. And until next time, folks, see you right here. Don't forget to leave a like, to subscribe, to share the podcast and the video on whatever channel you're watching, and also to leave a constructive comment if you enjoyed this one. See you, folks. Good night.
Bye bye.